Hello, I'm Matt and welcome to Badger Workshop. So I've done it again and bought another old tool. As you can see, this was back in winter with the snow on the ground and it was a bit of a nightmare to get up the drive. So what I've got is a planer, or jointer in America. It's all really solid cast iron with a 7-inch cutter. So I just got it put away in the garage and waited for the weather to get warmer. So let's turn it on and see if it works. And it all runs really quietly and smoothly. But it's definitely looking a bit rough. So I'm going to get it stripped down and cleaned up. As I say, it's all cast iron apart from this one bit, and there's a bit of pressed steel for the blade guard, and that's actually bent a bit, so I need to sort that out. The fence slides in and out on this bar, and it's an incredibly strong design. On the infeed table, it's got this bit of angle iron bolted on. I'm not sure why it's been added, but it's definitely not original, so I'm going to get that taken off. Well, I'm getting everything taken off, but I'm not going to put this bit back on. So this would have been a pattern maker's planer, and you can adjust the infeed and the outfeed table with these knobs. My other planer, you can just adjust the infeed. You can move these tables out the way so you can fit cutter blocks onto the head and not just knives. You'll see the cutter block in a bit. I love old machines, but the one problem they all have is the lack of dust collection, and you can see how many chips are in it, so I got all those vacuumed up. I've been able to find very little information about this machine, but it's pretty old and I had to buy a set of Whitworth sockets so I could take this apart. Now, even though it ran nice and smooth, I didn't know what sort of bearings it had. So these are the covers. I can get them taken off, the belt pulled off, and then I can get the knives removed from the block. So this has 2 knives, but it's got 4 sections that can be removed, so 2 of them you can put the shaper heads in. Not something I'll ever do, and I don't even know if I'd be able to get them, but it's an interesting piece. The pulley was on there pretty tight, so I had to use a bit of heat to get it removed. It uses a taper to lock it in place, so you actually need to push the pulley in and then you can pull the taper out in the centre, then it all comes off. Now I can get that shaft tapped out of the bearings and see what the bearings are on this. And I was quite pleased to see they're just some ball races, and they need a bit of a clean up, but they seem in pretty good condition. The bearings are in there nice and tight, so I just use a bit of dowel to knock them out. With it all stripped down, I take all the bits outside and give it a clean with some hot soapy water and leave everything to dry in the sun. So I don't know if you can see, but there is some paint on these parts. It's got bluey grey, so that might just be some primer. So first I'm going to try some water-based paint stripper. I get this brushed on, leave it an hour and give it a scrape, and I keep repeating the process. So in the past I've used the solvent paint strippers, and they're horrible toxic things to use, but they work really well. Now, this water-based stuff is much more pleasant to use, but unfortunately was not as effective. So I'm going to have to go back to the tried and true method of the twisted wire brush and the angle grinder. So I've got a couple of different knotted wheels that I like to use, and I swap between them depending on the parts. So the smaller parts I get clamped up in the post vise, and I can give them a clean, and the larger parts I just do on the workbench. Nothing difficult about this, It's just messy and time consuming, but you get a good result. I had some evaporust, so I got all the nuts and bolts in a tub and got them covered in it, and I left that overnight. Then I gave them a wash and dry, and I can get the rust removed off them and all the other small parts. But this time I used the drill press, and I've got a less aggressive brass wheel in this. Again, takes a bit of time, but it gets all the steel parts cleaned up nicely. So that's the rust and the paint stripped off all the parts. All the steel bits are looking quite nice and shiny, and I got the motor cleaned up as well. This motor's massive, but it says it's only rated at 1 horsepower. So I've got all the bits cleaned, paint off some of them, just rust off the others, and into 2 piles. So in here, which I kind of just showed you, was all the cast iron bits that had the paint on. Now, after I cleaned it all, obviously it's covered in dust, all the grinding dust. So then I give it all a good wash down, and what I just got is like a kitchen degreaser, just to clean any oil off them before painting. The trouble with cast iron is as soon as you actually get it wet again, you get a little bit of surface rust. But I'm going to be using a Hammerite direct to rust paint, so that's not a problem. All the steel bits, that doesn't rust as badly, and all the nuts and bolts, I've just got a coating of WD-40 on to protect it. So I suppose I haven't addressed why I bought this machine, as I've got a planer thicknesser, and this one's actually slightly smaller capacity. It's 7-inch compared to the 10-inch of the planer I've got. But I can't help myself. I see old machines that are interesting and had to get it. And it is an interesting machine because I can find zero information about it. This manufacturer, I can see they make much larger machines, but nothing this small. So it looks an interesting one, but that also makes it slightly difficult to work on as you can't find any info on it. So it had a few bits of paint on, not many at all, and it was like a bluey grey, so that could have just been some primer left on it. So what I've gone for Hammerite as it's readily available and I really like it. They don't really do a grey, they do a wild thyme, which looks like it's a greeny grey compared to the bluey grey that was on there, but I think it's going to work well. So next job is to get this on. So I think I'm going to leave this video here because I'm going to work on painting all these bits on and off while I work on other jobs for the next few weeks, if not months, and then I can start getting it back together. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my patrons, and in the next instalment, hopefully we'll have all the bits back together.